Remember those early AI art generators? It kind of felt like playing Pictionary with a robot that had only seen like blurry photos.
Right.
Well, get ready for a major upgrade because the AI art world just got a new player. It's
Mhm.
making some serious waves. It's called Flux. And let me tell you, it's not messing around.
What's interesting is that the team behind Flux is Black Forest Labs, the same folks who brought us Stable Diffusion. These are people who they know a thing or two about pushing the limits of AI.
That's right. And they just scored a whopping $31 million
Wow.
in funding. So clearly someone believes this is the real deal. But what makes Flux so different? Well, it's actually a family of AI image generators, each designed for a different kind of user.
They've got Flux Pro, which is geared towards professional users, Flux Dev, which is
Uh-huh.
open source and perfect for those who like to tinker. And then there's the one that's causing all the buzz, Flux Schnell.
Schnell, huh?
Mm.
Sounds a bit like a superhero name. So
Um,
what's the superpower of Schnell? Why are people so excited about it?
Schnell is all about putting power into the hands of everyday users. It's open source and designed for personal use, which means you don't need a massive budget or a supercomputer to create amazing AI art.
Wow. So AI art generation is finally becoming something anyone can do, not just big companies with fancy labs. That's a game changer for sure. But let's get down to the nitty-gritty. What's the secret sauce that makes Flux stand out from the crowd?
One of the key innovations is something called flow matching. It's a new and much more efficient way of training these models. Instead of just showing the AI millions of pictures, flow matching teaches it to understand the underlying patterns of how images are created.
So it's like teaching the AI the rules of visual composition, rather than just showing it a bunch of examples. That's pretty clever.
Exactly. It allows Flex to be more creative and flexible in its image generation, but there's another thing that makes Flex so powerful. Its sheer size. We're talking 12 billion parameters.
Okay, 12 billion of anything sounds impressive. But what does that actually mean in terms of creating art?
Think of parameters as tiny control knobs that the AI can adjust to create an image. The more parameters, the more detail and control the AI has. With 12 billion parameters, Flux can capture incredibly complex patterns and generate images with a level of realism and detail that we haven't seen before.
Okay, so we've got innovative training methods and a massive model size. That sounds promising, of course. Everyone wants to know how Flux stacks up against the current king of AI art, Midjourney.
It's the comparison everyone is making, and for good reason. Both platforms are capable of creating incredibly beautiful images. But Flux seems to have a slight edge when it comes to realism and detail. And there's another area where Flux really shines, prompt adherence.
Prompt adherence, so
Yeah,
how well it understands and follows your instructions.
precisely. One of the frustrations with some AI art generators is that they can take your prompt in a completely unexpected direction. Flux, on the other hand, is known for its ability to translate your ideas into images that closely match your vision.
So, less artistic interpretation, more getting exactly what you asked for. That sounds pretty appealing, especially if you're trying to create something specific. And what about speed? Everyone's talking about how fast these new generators are. How does Flux Schnell compare to Midjourney in that regard?
Well, Midjourney has been known for its speed, but FlexSchnell is designed to compete directly on that front. It's a tight race, and both platforms are pushing the boundaries of how quickly they can generate high-quality
It
images.
sounds like a thrilling competition. But beyond speed and accuracy, is there anything Flex does particularly well, something that really sets it apart?
One area where Flex excels is its ability to handle text within images. This is something that many AI art generators struggle with, but Flex seems to have cracked the code.
Wait, so you're saying I could create a logo with text in it,
Mm-hmm.
and it would actually look good?
You could do that and much more. Think about all the ways we use text in images: signs, book covers, even memes. Flux opens up a world of possibilities for creating visually rich content that seamlessly integrates text.
That's huge. It's not just about creating art for art's sake. It's about expanding the creative toolkit for designers, marketers, and anyone who wants to communicate visually.
Exactly. And to give you a sense of what Flux is capable of, let's look at some of the examples that have been circulating online. One that really caught my eye was a Van Gogh self-portrait. But instead of a beard, his face is made up of swirling brushstrokes that form the words Starry Night.
Hold on. That's not just text in the image. It's style blending, too. It's like the AI took two iconic pieces of art and seamlessly fused them together.
It's a great example of how Flux can handle complex prompts and generate images that are both creative and technically impressive. And to show you the level of detail Flux can achieve, they've also released a close-up image of a cat's eye. The colors, the reflections, the texture, it's incredibly realistic.
Wow, that sounds amazing. And it's clear that Flux is more than just a fun toy. We're talking about a tool with serious creative potential.
Sure.
But where do you see this technology actually being used out there in the world?
The possibilities are practically endless. Imagine marketers creating custom visuals for their campaigns in a snap. Game designers conjuring up entire worlds and characters in minutes. Architects visualizing buildings before the first brick is even laid.
It's mind-blowing, really. This feels like one of those moments where technology is poised to unlock a whole new level of creative expression. But before we get too lost in the excitement, I think it's important to take a step back and understand what's happening under the hood. How is Flux actually achieving these amazing results?
You're right. It's easy to get caught up in the wow factor, but the technology itself is fascinating. Remember those 12 billion parameters we mentioned? Well, they're just the building blocks. The real magic is in how they're organized. Flux uses something called a hybrid architecture, which essentially combines different types of AI models into one superpowered system.
Okay, hybrid architecture. It
Yeah.
sounds impressive, but I have to admit, I'm a little lost. Break it down for me. What does that actually mean?
Imagine it like this. You have one AI specialist who's amazing at understanding language, another who's a master of recognizing visual patterns, and another who excels at actually creating images. Hybrid architecture is like bringing all of those specialists together into one team, allowing them to collaborate on each image.
Ah, so it's like each part of the AI model has its own specialty, and they work together to produce the final image. That makes sense. But how does this hybrid approach actually help Flux create better art?
That's a great question. One of the big advantages is that it allows Flux to handle those complex prompts we were talking about. It can break down a request, understand the nuances of the language, and then translate all of that into a visual masterpiece.
It's like having an AI team that can not only paint, but also read and interpret your instructions. Pretty incredible. But how does it actually learn to do all of this? Is it just staring at pictures all day long?
Well, in a way, yes. It's a process called training, and it involves feeding the AI model massive amounts of data, both text and images. This helps it learn the relationships between words, concepts, and visual elements. Imagine like an art student flipping through an endless art history book, absorbing every style, technique, and composition.
So it's basically studying to become an expert artist,
Mhm.
but at warp speed. But we were talking earlier about flow matching, which is supposedly a new way to train these models. What makes Flux's training different from other AI art generators?
Flow matching is a fascinating approach because it focuses on understanding the underlying distribution of data, which in this case is the vast world of images. It's not just about memorizing specific images, it's about learning the rules, the principles behind how images are constructed.
It's learning the grammar of visual language,
Yeah.
not just the vocabulary. That sounds like a pretty profound difference.
It is. And the result is that Flux can generate more creative and original images while still staying true to the user's prompt. It's like someone who understands the rules of grammar can create infinite new sentences, all while following the same basic principles.
Okay, that's a great analogy. Now,
Yeah.
we touched on this earlier,
Hmm.
but I want to circle back to it because it's such a big deal. Flux's ability to handle text within images. Why is this such a game changer?
Think about how ubiquitous text is in our world. It's everywhere. Signs, logos, book covers, memes. Yet most AI art generators struggle to incorporate text seamlessly. The fonts might be wrong, the placement awkward, or the letters themselves look distorted.
You're right. I've seen those AI-generated images
Yeah.
where the text looks like it was written by a drunken robot. So
know.
how has Flux managed to crack the code?
It goes back to that hybrid architecture and the sophisticated training methods we were discussing. Flux has a deep understanding of how text and images interact, how to create visually appealing compositions where text is an integral part of the design.
So it's not just about creating pretty pictures. It's about understanding the visual language of our world and being able to use it effectively.
Absolutely. And this opens up a whole new realm of possibilities. Imagine being able to create marketing materials with perfectly integrated logos, designing custom book covers, or even generating memes with hilariously accurate text.
It sounds like Flux is giving designers, marketers, and even meme lords a whole new set of tools. It's really exciting to think about the creative potential. But all of this talk about technical innovations might leave some people feeling a bit intimidated. What about folks who are a little more tech-savvy? How does Flux cater to developers and researchers?
That's where the open source nature of Flux really shines. Remember, there are different versions of the platform, Flux Dev and Flux Schnell are designed specifically for those who want to get under the hood and experiment.
So they're giving people access to the code, the ability to tinker and modify the model itself.
Exactly. They can access the code, play around with the settings, and even build their own custom tools and interfaces.
It's like giving someone the keys to the AI kingdom and saying, go create something amazing.
Mm.
But doesn't that also come with some risks? What about the ethical considerations we need to keep in mind when we're talking about such powerful technology?
It's a valid concern. Any powerful tool can be misused, and AI is no exception. But what's encouraging is that the team behind Flux seems very aware of these challenges. They've been vocal about the importance of responsible AI development, and the open source nature of the platform actually plays a role in that.
That's an interesting point. How does open source contribute to responsible development?
Well, it's like having a whole community of watchdogs. With the code being freely available, more people can scrutinize it, identify potential problems, and work together to find solutions. It promotes transparency and accountability.
That makes sense. It's not just relying on one company or a small group of people to ensure things are being done ethically. It's a collective effort.
Exactly.
And it's important to remember that we're still in the early stages of this technology. We're all learning and figuring things out together.
That's true. And speaking of learning, one of the things that excites me the most about Flux is the potential for education. Imagine students having access to this kind of creative power, being able to experiment with new forms of visual storytelling, to bring their ideas to life in ways that were never possible before.
It's like giving them a whole new set of crayons, but instead of just colors, they have access to styles, textures, concepts. The possibilities are endless. And not just for students either. Think about small businesses that can now create professional-looking marketing materials without needing to hire expensive designers, or hobbyists who can finally explore their artistic potential without needing years of training.
It's a real democratization of creativity. Anyone with a computer and an internet connection can now participate in this exciting new art movement.
Okay, I'm officially inspired. This is more than just cool tech. It's a shift in how we think about creativity itself. But
Let's be
realistic for a second.
Yeah.
Is there any chance my old laptop can actually handle running something as complex as Flux?
There are some hardware requirements, of course, but they're not as steep as you might think. And as the technology advances, we're seeing these models becoming more efficient, able to run on less powerful machines. So it's less about having the latest and greatest tech and more about having the curiosity and the willingness to explore.
Absolutely. It's about that spark of creativity, that desire to bring something new into the world.
All right. So we've talked about the tech, the comparisons, the ethical considerations, the potential applications. It's been quite a deep dive. But before we wrap things up, I have to ask, what are you personally most excited about when it comes to Flux and the future of AI art?
Honestly, it's the element. It's the element of surprise. We're just scratching the surface of what's possible with this technology. I can't wait to see what people create with it, the unexpected applications, the new art forms, the collaborations we can't even imagine yet. It's a wild west of creativity out there, and that's what makes it so thrilling.
It's like we're handing over a set of magical brushes to the world, and we get to watch as everyone paints their own masterpieces. What a beautiful way to put it. And to our listeners, we leave you with this thought. What will you create with the power of Flux in your hands?
That's all for this deep dive into the fascinating world of Flux. We'll be back soon with more explorations of cutting-edge tech and its impact on our lives.
Until then, keep those creative sparks flying.